This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by Kava, and you'll hear more about them later on in this episode. What is up, my listeners? What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem, and you are listening and hopefully watching Untold Stories, where twice a week together, we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders, technology's most influential leaders, politicians, brilliant people in the room, those who have went through the craziest traumas of their lives and have come out on top. We're talking to those people to really understand the societal shift that we're going through, to understand where we are right now, and to understand where we came from, and to understand really where we're going. I just got invited to speak at a conference in Prague, and the title of the conference is called Chaos, because we are going through this like hyper movement of the individual, where previously it was all about the collective. But going through the coronavirus pandemic that we just went through, we've learned that, and listening to the show, that we not only have to create the tools and the abilities for us to protect ourselves, feed our families, and maintain our family units and our smaller communities, but at the same time, we have to keep our mental ability and our physical ability as strong, because life is all about those five spokes and maintaining all those tools, those sovereign tools, financial sovereignty, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, all of the financial and credit and legacy markets that we're rebuilding here, rebuilding equality. Oh my God, we're redoing everything. You're listening and watching Untold Stories. My guest today is Aaron Gooding. Aaron, thank you so much for coming. And my wife, Courtney, actually has joined us in the studio today. So it's awesome to have you guys here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. It's great.
How are you feeling this morning?
I feel good. I feel okay.
Me too.
I'm not complaining.
I'm excited to have you on the show because over the last year, we've been able to grow the audience and grow our education on knowledge about all these different subjects, not just Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. We've been doing life advice episodes. We've been doing shows about traumatic events. I just had a mayor of a town in Tennessee on the show. We've had some politicians, high-ranking. The deputy prime minister of India was on our show. And so I'm really excited to kind of get into this. And a lot of people are asking me, why don't you talk more prison stories? Why don't you talk about, kind of like your own life traumas? And so today we can get into that, because when I met you a few years ago, I was at a very difficult point in my life, in our lives, going through some litigations, cases, going through times where all of my spokes were out of whack. And you really helped me get everything back into whack, get everything back together. And one of the first lessons that you taught me, and you had to learn this yourselves in your almost decade going through the justice system and the craziness, and you'll tell your story. But I remember one of the first things you taught me, you reminded me, was my first day in prison was getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about that? And why is that so important in the world that we're living in today? We're all going through this now.
Right. I mean, look at the times. We're all uncomfortable right now. It doesn't matter where you sit on any topic. We are all uncomfortable. We are all offended. But, pertaining to what you asked, it's becoming comfortable. Being uncomfortable is something that, I had to figure out really quickly. And it's something that I really like to encourage people to do, not only because I'm a personal trainer, but because it offers an immense opportunity for growth as an individual. When you put yourself in adverse situations and you just kind of suck it up and do it, or do your due diligence, you gain so much more from that than you initially put in.
It's so true. It's so true. You get that out there. And, I was going through therapy and going through so many of these different methods for personal growth. But it wasn't until I really stepped into the gym that I start to get that personal growth, and it wasn't in a place that I was thinking it needed to be mentally. It was more physical, but it translated it into mental.
Right. As I just shared something with Courtney this morning along the same exact lines. We just finished our training session. I can't remember exactly what it was that I said to you, but it was almost identical.
Yeah.
It's like, but it goes, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Not necessarily that specifically, but when you're in the thick of it, you need to keep pushing forward and pushing through, because turning back is never the right option, I think that's one of the biggest parts of learning to become comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a popular meme that circulated around the internet pretty recently in the fitness industry talking about, you want to slow time down, plank it out.
Yeah.
How often, you want to make a minute into an hour, hold a minute plank, and it's going to seem like an hour.
Oh, that's a great, like, how to take the longest minute of your life, do a 1 minute plank, and you'll be begging for that minute to end.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, if you feel like, it's
No, I could just imagine myself like in a room and like everything is coming at you so quickly and literally getting on the floor and doing a 1 minute plank. Literally slow everything down.
everything down. And I love planking for that. Like, if you're looking for a good way for some introspection, planking is great.
How old are you?
33.
So we're roughly the same age.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot. And you've been able to get a crazy life perspective from your past experiences. Tell us a little bit about you. Where did you grow up here?
Yeah. So I've got a pretty interesting story of how I grew up and all that stuff. When I was born, I was adopted. I never knew my parents. They adopted me. My birth parents put me up for adoption. And my parents heard about me through friends of friends, adopted me. I was born in North Las Vegas, and they flew me home back down here to sunny Sarasota when I was 3 days old with my birth parent, or my adopted parents. And I was raised here in Sarasota and Bradenton, which is now Lakewood Ranch. Grew up very middle class, never really wanted for anything, never really struggled for anything, but wanted more, always. You always want more. Was very active in school, church. I was in Boy Scouts, lots of different things.
You're a good kid growing up.
I was a good kid growing up, but I was also an asshole.
Yeah. Did you have a chip on your shoulder?
I think I did have a chip on my shoulder when I was a kid. I've always been kind of a little guy. And I don't know if that's part of what's kind of subconsciously prompted me to get into fitness and training. But when I was younger, I got picked on when I was younger, when I was in middle school and elementary school. Even in high school, kids are mean. And I always kind of felt like I had something to prove, probably much like a lot of other young men do,
Yeah.
I was a good kid, but I was an asshole teenager. So once I started to, find that or develop that chip on my shoulder, after that got to a substantial size, I started to act out a little bit more.
A lot of people believe that the chip is a good thing growing up. It motivates you, it's power, it's energy, it's something that's yours that no one can take. What do you think?
I completely agree. That's, I am not condoning bullying or picking on others or any of that type of thing, because I think it's absolutely awful, but it does help shape our character. Going through different adverse situations as a youth, as a child, even as an adult, shapes our character, and it makes us who we are. And it's those collective experiences that give us, that give us our personality and who we are and everything overall.
I feel like you need a constant radical of where your life could be to always maintain that daily happiness and growth, because I don't know if I could live an as fulfilling life now if I had not gone to prison 7 years ago or whatever it was.
Right. And I would not be where I am at today. I would not be who I am today had it not been for my incarceration and my experience in prison.
And a lot of people look at us in this like sympathy and empathy, but really when I meet people who have never gone to prison, the first thing I think about when I meet someone, and maybe this is my fault because I judge people the wrong way, but I categorize people into two. I categorize those who have been through trauma and those who have not. And I really think it makes a difference in the person. It's a global thing. Anyone I meet, that's almost one of the first things I think about. And I talk to my guest about that too. The crazy traumas that people on this show have gone through, how it shaped them to where they are today. There's a CEO of one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin companies that was homeless just a few years ago. And he had to go and write articles at coffee shops about Bitcoin companies and Bitcoin conferences to get free tickets to go to the Bitcoin conferences because he couldn't even afford tickets to the conferences. But by going to all these events, that shaped who he was. He was starting from the bottom. That trauma of the choices that he made that put him in that position, he'll never forget.
He'll never forget it. And that's like, that's the fire under your feet. I'm sure coming out of prison for you, getting back into the world and everything, it was, you wanted to do it better. You wanted to do it differently. You wanted to do it in a manner that nobody else could because you're Charlie Shrem.
So but I wasn't Charlie Shrem when I got out of prison. A lot of people, when I got out, I didn't have this brand or name or social reach that I have now. It was very, very different times back then. I was like, didn't have much money when I got out. I say we got out of prison because I felt like Courtney was there with me. But, we had to rebuild from the beginning. And I'm kind of grateful for that because I was able to do it from scratch. I was able to have a completely new restart at life.
Right. I felt the same exact way. And for me, I had no prior, I know you had some prior success before your incarceration. I had just graduated from high school in 2006, and in 2007, I'm facing charges. And 2008, I'm getting sentenced to 10 and a half years in the Florida Department of Corrections. And getting out is like, I missed college. All of my family friends are immensely successful on their own. I felt like I really had a lot to pick up and do. So I can completely relate to you in that aspect.
There's a maturity level pause when someone goes into prison and they get out. It's like you continue on with societal growth with society, but at the age that you were when you went in. And I noticed this when I was in with people who would be 40, 50 years old who had the same maturity level as those who were in their 20s and 30s. And then you had those who were in their 20s who were very highly mature because they've been in there for so long already. What was that like for you? How old were you when you went in?
So I had just turned 20 years old when I went to prison. And that was a huge pill to swallow. Like I said earlier, I grew up very middle class, very privileged, never really wanted or hurted for anything in life. So, being kind of thrust out of suburbia into prison is a huge, huge shakeup. One of the things that I did, I realized is I need to just completely forget about the life that I had before completely, because that's not the life that I have now. So,
we talked to go back about being uncomfortable with the uncomfortability. Yeah.
Right. Just trying to assimilate to that lifestyle as quick as possible. But it was essential for me going into prison at that age, and it was just such a shock. I can remember going into the housing unit that I was in, and the sergeant of the unit asked me my name and my DC number, and I read it off to him, and he said, "Welcome to hell." And I just kind of looked at him, and you've known me long enough. I'm a little bit of a sarcastic asshole.
Dude, it wasn't a joke. It's not a joke.
It's not a joke, but I didn't know how else to deal with it. So I just kind of looked at him and I laughed it off. And I was like, God. You know what? I think I'm going to like it here.
Oh my God.
And as disturbing as that was to say and everything, I felt like I had to retaliate against the system somehow to maintain who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You had to keep and maintain that dignity for yourself that they were constantly trying to strip away from you.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you a question. That dignity or that self that you were trying to maintain was a pre-prison Aaron that had a huge chip on his shoulder. And you could say, yeah, that chip caused me to commit my crime, put me in prison, but then I'm amazing now and I'm happy now. But if you didn't have that chip, would you have ever gone to prison? Where would you be now? Do you ever think about that?
I do. Prior to going to prison, I had an opportunity to go in the military. And this is 2006. This is kind of the peak of the war in Iraq.
Sure.
And I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. I knew in my heart that I needed my butt kicked. as a kid because I had that chip on my shoulder. I was headed down a one-way path to some type of destruction. Ending up in prison was just one of probably a few likely scenarios, unfortunately.
That's really sad for you to say that about yourself, to be honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, like it's kind of defeating to realize that I was that person at one point in time. And I don't know what got me to that place. It's just, I guess I felt
Windbird full of red, right?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
destiny and fate.
yeah.
Do you ever think that you needed to end up there to change someone else's life?
I've considered that in the past, and I think, through my incarceration, I have had positive impacts on the other inmates, and the people that I've chose to kind of align myself with in there. I have some great friends, some that are inmates, some that were actually officers that were in charge of my care and custody, that I still communicate with. I recently got married last year, and one of the officers that was in charge of a work squad that I was on gave me a call and congratulated me on my marriage. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me.
Well, that's talking about turning a positive into a negative. Could you imagine yourself getting beat by a guard and saying, "One day you're going to be at my wedding"?
Yeah, right. It's a complete flip of the script that you're
wasn't hell anymore.
No.
Yeah, it kind of in a way I like that because it provides that one phone call probably provided you with so much closure because here you are in the day of your wedding. It's watershed moment for your life. You're moving on. Everything you're gonna literally look at your life now instead of pre-prison and post-prison is like pre-marriage, post-marriage.
Right.
So I'm the same way. And having that call the day you're getting married is like almost the universe saying, "Have a great life."
Yeah. It's kind of like an attaboy. Like you've gotten yourself out of that bucket of crap, and now you're.
Aaron, we've been training 3 days a week for over I don't know, over a year and a half, and training not just physically but mentally too. Over the last year during coronavirus, and a lot of people got locked down. We were very fortunate here in Florida to be not as bad. But what kind of common threads did you see in people that you saw when you were in prison? In terms of people feeling sadness and shame and whatever guilt of being locked down.
I think a lot more self-victimizing behavior took place a lot during the pandemic.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, in that we pity ourselves. And I feel like this is a common theme across our nation. With all these current recent events, we participate in self-victimizing behavior that causes our own destruction and demise and downfall, and then we want to wave the white flag. Like, hey, listen, I didn't realize that my actions were going to lead me to this place. When I share my story with a lot of people, I always ask them, don't feel bad for me because my actions led me here. This is my decision. Unfortunately, it was a terrible one, but I am proud of who I am today. And I think in the mix of that, I think through the pandemic and everything, people are losing their jobs. They're feeling probably just immense feelings of loss and guilt. Like maybe they didn't perform their job well enough and they had to, they lost their job still, or maybe they put forth their best effort and they still lost their job, or families and loved ones are getting sick and people are dying and there's all this different stuff and we're getting inundated by all this just belligerent material that has no factual basis, and we're letting that into our lives and our psyche, and it's just not doing anything positive for us. And I think one of the biggest things that we have to do when it comes to that is really fortify ourselves against that which we do not align with.
And it's thinking too, right? It's thinking
rational. There's a ton of rational thinking. You have to take yourself out of your emotions. And this is something that I did all the time when I was incarcerated, because people would do things, I was 140 pounds. I'm a white kid. I am not the epitome of a hardened prison inmate. So I didn't really get tried like a lot of people do when they first go to prison. I came to prison from solitary confinement, so I kind of had this
You're already hardened.
reputation. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big facade, but um, so that kind of jettisoned me through my beginning portion of my incarceration. But it's and looking at it that way, I could compare coronavirus in the beginning part of my incarceration a lot the same because here I am struggling and trying to scramble to try and find some kind of resolve. And how am I going to work in this new lifestyle, in this new environment?
Yeah.
That was the same thing with COVID. When COVID popped up and everything, everybody's scrambling or trying to figure out how are we going to be able to work and maintain candor during this time of adversity.
But the question is how do we work, maintain candor in the times of adversity in the ways that we were doing before? People, you and I were saying we were in the gym the next day and we were like, all right, we're back, we're just back lockdown. It's like house arrest again. We'll figure it out. Like, we're back to our prison mentality or whatever. But most people are like, shit, how do I laugh?
At the beginning of your incarceration, I'm sure you went through, an immense state of shock and trauma, just like mentally, just internalizing what was happening. And the only reason I said it is because I did. And I only know my own experiences.
Sure.
So that's why, I have to go off. That's why I say that. But I think it was the same thing, like right when COVID happened, we all freaked out. We had to assimilate this new style of culture, this quote unquote new normal. Everybody's masks. You're not able to see personalities.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
interact with people in the same way. People are putting up information and stuff on the internet talking about Korea used to use masks as punishment because it removes your personality and you don't associate with the person and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, what do you believe?
Yeah, it's whatever you want to. Echo chambers.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like we're in Never Never Land or something.
Taking accountability is not just something that you have to do when you're about to go into prison for the benefit of the courts and for the benefit of everyone else, but taking accountability is the only way to get through prison. I mean, you knew there were two types of people. There were those who were like, my actions led me there. I am here for my own, I am here for my own actions and I'm going to make the best of the situation and I'm going to grow my life and be better. And then you'd have those who were like, obviously you had the innocent ones who rightfully so should have continuing to argue their case. But then you had those who, which were unfortunately a lot of people, who were just constantly living in the past, living in their own lifestyles, living their own mistakes and their own actions then and their own friends and their whole lifestyle. Why is taking accountability, not just related to crimes in prison and things like that, but just in life, business decisions with your wife and your family and your kids? Like when I mean taking accountability, it's like coming back later, repeating what you did and taking the responsibility, whatever that is. Why is that so important?
Because you're not going to be able to make a positive out of it if you don't.
It's always going to be a negative.
It's always going to be a negative. So you're going to have to work through it. And me and Courtney talked about this right before we left the gym earlier. And I brought up one of my favorite books. It's called Extreme Ownership. And I think I really agree with the whole concept and everything behind this book. It's an immensely amazing book. It describes you how to own everything from your actions to your words to everything. You make a decision. That is your decision. You need to own it 100%. If you don't own it 100%, then you're going to always place blame on others or push it off. How often have we found ourselves doing something stupid, but blaming it? The reason we had to act stupid was because of the actions of others.
Yeah.
You didn't have to react that way or act that way, My dad gave me a quote from a guy, his name's Charles Swandell. And I absolutely love this quote. My dad used to have this quote from this guy up on his dresser in his closet. And my dad kept a big change thing in his closet. Yeah. And anytime I needed change, I'd always go over there and grab some change and stuff. But I'd read the thing on there, and it was all about attitude. And it's the same thing, owning our mistakes, decisions, actions, everything. We get to choose our attitude every single day we wake up. You get to decide if you're going to be upset, indifferent, happy, sad, anything.
Is that what free will is then? We get to choose the attitude.
I believe so.
Okay.
And you get to, free will, like you call me an asshole, I get to decide how I want to react to that. There's no predetermined, preset response to that. There is no preset or predetermined response to anything in life. It is up to us entirely. And we have to own those decisions and those actions that come out of what we are doing and what is promoting us to do whatever it is. And one of the big things I used to analyze in myself is, am I making decisions and taking action out of emotion or intellect? Or is it a combination of both? And what I had found for myself is that the majority of my life had been led by emotion, if it feels good. And how many of us do that? How many of us chase that feel good feeling, you know?
Yeah.
I think for incarceration, it's the majority of the people, depending on what their vice is, that led them there. But being able to remove yourself from your emotion and own whatever it is that you're doing gives you an opportunity to see it outside of the box and more objectively.
What other books have you read that are equally as powerful to you that you recommend to everyone else to read?
Well, I'll list off a couple of them. Obviously, Extreme Ownership is written by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. They're both retired Navy SEALs, amazing individuals. Another one is Stephen Covey's Habits, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a great
Oh,
book.
yeah.
Anything by Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill.
Sure.
While I was incarcerated, one of my biggest pursuits was self-improvement. There's a book I read, my mother sent it to me. It was called For Your Improvement. I can't recall the author, but it was written like a textbook. And it was dry and boring. But that was an immensely influential book too, just because it helps you identify places you need to improve, not necessarily places you want to improve.
Let me ask you a question on that subject. Over the course of your decade in prison, and then now the years that you've been out, you've probably had good and bad habits come and go. Which ones do you fervently keep? Good habits that you fervently keep from the beginning?
I will forever keep my health and well-being at optimal levels, because, you know, and there's all kinds of science to back this up. And I think Courtney experienced a little bit of this today. You know, paying attention to your physical fitness does so much more than just physical fitness. It plays a part into your mental health and everything as well.
Yeah, because Courtney wasn't feeling well when she woke up this morning.
Right. Yeah, and we turned her whole day
It's all about
around.
the attitude.
Yeah, it's your attitude. So you get to decide, you know, is today going to be a good day or is it going to be a bad day?
Hey guys, I'm Charlie Shrem. Wanted to congratulate our sponsor Kava, because Circle chose the Kava platform as one of their newest blockchains and protocols they're going to be launching USDC on. Traditionally, USDC has only been on Ethereum and one or two other chains like Tron, but now there's a bunch of other blockchains. The Kava platform is one of them, and you can access all of those super cool DeFi high yield opportunities that are on the Kava platform now with USDC, which we know and love. So check them out at untoldstories.link/Kava. And congratulations, guys. Having Circle choose y'all as the top blockchain for USDC to be launched on is a big freaking deal.
I like that. I have this like thing when I wake up in the morning, and I'm like, try to make sure that as soon as you wake up, the energy is good for the first few minutes. And if it's bad, then I'm like, my whole day is going to be bad. But that's my thinking. I can turn it around.
Right.
That's just my attitude and my thinking. The day doesn't have to be a bad day just because it woke up bad for 5 minutes. But that's my negative thing. My positive. I look for signs. You know, we look birds in the sky. It's stupid, but
well, listen, man. I think me and you are of the same mind. I'm the same way. You know, I'm probably more superstitious than the average bear myself.
Yeah. So here's a great like common thread that we've been talking about, and kind of bring it all together for a moment here, is that it seems to me that during the adverse times in our lives, those are the times that we develop the gems, the diamonds. During the pressure, we learn about ourselves. We develop all the good habits that we need to have. We get better during the times of extreme trauma and adversity. Talk about health and well-being. How the hell? People ask me this all the time. How the hell can you eat nutritiously in prison? How did you learn how to eat optimally for your body in the places where you're probably eating all expired and shitty food all day?
Dude, that was one of the biggest struggles.
Yeah.
And if you don't have any kind of, you know,
Cooking ability?
well, definitely needs some cooking ability, and inspiration.
Sure.
But outside support, you know, it's, you can't order stuff off the canteen and everything if you don't have any money.
No man is an island, right?
Yeah, no man is an island. That's absolutely correct. Eating out of the chow hall and everything in prison is pretty much impossible to eat healthy because they've switched over from all kinds of reasonably okay stuff to eat to it's got textured vegetable proteins and all this stuff.
And anything worth eating, they're stealing out of the loading dock before they give it to us anyway.
Exactly.
So I know we all saw it happening.
It's there's so much.
Dude, if you want to see corruption, just look at how prisons are run. Yeah,
look at the prison system. I can't remember who it was, but they said, if you want to see the worst people in the world, go to a prison on shift change or release, and you're going to see all kinds of people, and that it's a broken system from the top to the bottom.
Yeah. But I'm going to get to that in a second. But I want to talk. Tell me more about eating nutritiously.
Eating nutritiously. So one of the things that I used to do is always opt for beans and rice if they had something. There's always an alternate. You can get whatever the main dish was or an alternate thing. They might be serving like a chicken quarter or something. That was the only real meat I got consistently through my incarceration was chicken quarters.
Chicken Thursday, baby.
Yeah, that's it. But you could get a chicken sandwich, or you could get chicken or a peanut butter sandwich. And I always went for the chicken because it's good protein and everything. And we are meant to consume amount of animal pro. I was like, majority of my diet here is vegan because of the subsidized textured vegetable protein stuff or TVP that they had. It was awful. Oh, I hated it. And that it would turn your stomach. That stuff was disgusting. It's bad. It's super high in soy. It's gonna just completely destroy your test levels and everything.
I had so many gastro issues, but
oh yeah. I've seen a lot of gut health issues with people that are incarcerated because of the diet. One of the things that really benefited me was my parents sent me a small amount of money every month to get just regular life provisions out of the canteen because the prison has to provide you with everything that you need.
Yeah.
Toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant. Well, I don't think they do deodorant.
No.
Soap.
I wish they did.
But you can get deodorant.
That should be a basic life necessity.
Right? I mean, like the things that we consider basic life necessities are in fact really not. I guess it's first world problems, right? But we would get tunas, fish, the pouch tuna, pouch fish and stuff off the canteen. Really try to source everything as nutritiously as I can. But I compare eating nutritiously in prison as to eating nutritionally at Circle K. But it's the truth.
That's the best analogy because my first day getting out of prison, going to the halfway house, we were allowed to go to like a CVS, and I'm like, wow, this is like commissary, but I get to touch everything before.
You can get everything you need for a goulash at a Circle K.
You can. Oh, a cheesecake! I can make cheesecake in the microwave.
Yeah. It's. Oh God, we used to make some insane cakes. I would tell my parents and write my parents about these cakes that we used to make because, and I'm sure this was the case for you when you were incarcerated too. I mean, like this has got nothing to do with nutrition at all. But we would birthdays were a big deal for me and a couple of my buddies while we were in there.
Yes,
because it's something that you normally share with your family and friends and the people that you love. And your birthday is printed right on your ID. Everybody knows when your birthday is.
True story.
Within your circle of influence, one of the things that we used to do within my circle was we would all get together and we would get down on a big goulash and we would make a cake and we would celebrate whoever's birthday it was or whatever holiday it was. And, you build your own community in there. And I think that was fundamental for me in my mental health while I was incarcerated and everything. And I think it was fundamental for a lot of people. I'm sure you found the same thing.
I learned a lot of good advice. I learned a lot of things there. One of the things that I really, really learned was how to think for myself with a high degree of common sense in a place where you can't Google things or you can't get external communication, but you have to make life and death decisions based on the information that you have in front of you. And there was this joke thing in jail called like inmate.com.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, I heard everything you've ever heard was on inmate.com. I remember like just lining up outside the warden's office one 4 a.m. morning thinking that we were getting, like a free chicken that day because I heard on inmate.com. And like the warden's like, what are you doing outside my office, Shrem? Like just stupid. My first day in prison, I go in, I see a guy wrapping himself in saran wrap, running on the track, and then he just passes out right in front of him because apparently someone told him that doing that every day is going to make him lose weight. So you have to learn how to make decisions on your own, especially now, COVID, vaccines, masks. You have where governments are making decisions for the collective and saying so. The governments are saying, hey, we are making decisions for the millions of people, not for the you and you and you and you and you. So now it's up to you and your family to make your own life and death decisions. It's very scary for most people. Most people don't want to do it, Aaron.
No. Well, I don't think most people have the resolve to do it.
Sure.
I think it will drive most people crazy or they just shut down.
How do you think for yourself? How do you have common sense? How do you trust your gut to make your own decisions?
I kind of think that was like an innate thing in me. I've always questioned everything. And, I was thinking about this the other day kind of loosely. I think I really got it from my father because one of the things I did as a young child, it's like I loved Legos. I loved to build Legos. But I never was able to complete my first one. My dad had to help me complete my first one. And he showed me step by step, this is what you do next. So anytime me and my sister had a problem where we couldn't figure out something to do, my dad would always be like, okay, take us, stop, slow down. What do you have to do next? What's next? What is the next immediate thing that you need to do? And I think thinking for myself and, becoming really self-reliant is that stopping, slowing down, realizing that the sky is not falling.
Do a plank.
Being able to a plank for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gives you the resolve to be like, okay, I have to go get gas. The first thing I have to do to go get gas is get in my car. I know that sounds very simple, but apply it to anything else. I want to start a business. What's the very first thing you need to do when you want to start a business? If you don't know how to start a business previously, well, maybe you should research it. SBA.gov.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Where I learned how to open up my business.
So just being able to go out and trust yourself and trusting your own instincts.
Yeah.
And you say that you had that ability before you went in, but I think that you learned, your resolve became stronger. And that's what we talk about becoming harder, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for, we have to harden ourselves as people and, kind of fortify ourselves against others who would intend us harm or ill will or anything. Because, not everybody has your best interest in mind, but not everybody is out to get you. So, really self-disciplining and fortifying yourself and reminding yourself who you are is immensely important.
And why you are, too.
And why you are, exactly. What are your goals? What are you working towards? What kind of legacy do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? Those are all things that really promoted me to want to make sure that I was on the right side of things coming out of prison. I didn't ever want to get sucked into the mess that it is with recidivism.
Sure.
And multiple convictions for multiple charges or becoming a habitual offender, because the both of us, we, going into our incarceration, we could have come out of it immensely bitter towards our government, the law, society, everything, and act in an adverse way. And we see that, time to time on the news, third time felon broke into a house, whatever, it's, why does that happen?
I don't know. And I think about this every single day because every society needs law and order. And every society, for us to feel safe in our own home sleeping at night, needs a place where those who are at the bottom can rehabilitate themselves and become pro-social members of societies. What we call nowadays is prisons and jails, but they are not what they should be. Famous philosophers have written about in the past about what society should look like and how reform should be. It's not what we see today. You can go to Netherlands, you can go to Norway to kind of see, Germany, what prisons there look like and how they're run and how inmates and felons are viewed in their society is fundamentally different. Now, you and I, we are not the statistic, right? Well, knock on wood, right? You should always say that. In terms of the day before I got out of prison, I remember having this meeting with my case manager and he said, 9 out of 10 people that are sitting in your chair are back. Most of them in the same place, same here, within a year. That's a scary fucking thing. I don't care what you believe you did, what is a fluke, and you're not a criminal, whatever you believe. There is an inkling saying, shit, am I a criminal for life? Is this in my blood, or my DNA, where I am a criminal? I am a bad person and I should just never be allowed to be part of society. And that society was telling me that before I went to prison. Growing up, we see it in our cartoons and our TV show, jails. It's in Hollywood. It's part of how do we enact reform? How do we change how society views felons, inmates, prisons, but how prisons are actually run? I mean, you have so many good ideas. You tell me them offhand. It's like just paying the guards more.
Yeah.
You think
just paying the guards.
So here
more.
you have an inmate telling me to pay the guards more. It makes it's crazy.
It doesn't
right?
make sense. Yeah, defund the police, right? I mean, I should be all for that, but I'm not, because what is that? That's not going to do anything for our police force. It's not going to make them more amicable to the public or anything as far as that goes. It's going to make them more bitter. Hey, I'm not getting paid enough. I have to see everybody on the worst day of their life and put them in handcuffs and stuff, and they fight and punch and spit, and you don't know what kind of people you're going to come across as an officer. I feel for them. I feel for our corrections officers and everything. However, they need to be held to a higher standard and a higher accountability in the prison system. I think our judicial system, like I said, from the top to the bottom, it's a broken system. And I don't know I can't remember if this is something you shared with me or something somebody else shared with me. But it was in another country in the world, the prison system becomes an honor, like it's an honor system to be able to work there.
Oh yeah.
And I guess you have to have some kind of prior
military service or
service
something,
or police department service, or have been some kind of first responder, medical experience or whatever, because they need all of those people in the prison system. And then pay them twice as much as they were making as an officer or in the military or something as far as that goes, and limit the number of years that they're allowed to work in the prison system, because they are reliable. Like, we have to rely on them to rehabilitate and help rehabilitate the worst of society. So, what I saw in the prison that I was at, and some of the prisons that I was at, what I saw was that you've got a lot of individuals that work at the prison that would probably otherwise be working at some type of skilled labor job or something. They don't want to work hard. We got a bunch of, unfortunately, I don't want to place this stigma on all prison guards, because they're not all lazy, but you got a lot of lazy prison guards. One of the things at one of the prisons I was at was popular amongst the guards was they all would try and get like over 300 pounds. And I can't remember the BMI that they would shoot for, but it would constitute them as obese and severely obese, because at that point the prison would pay for them to get lap band surgery and all of that stuff.
These are the inmates or the guards?
These are the guards.
Oh,
these are our state and federal employees milking the system.
Yeah, because
we shouldn't be surprised.
They learn how to become criminals.
Exactly. They learn from the criminals how to become criminals in a criminal environment, and it's a downward spiral. So I mean, you've got the good old boy system where there's been officers there for 20 and 30 years that are working there with their sons and wives and daughters and stuff. And
you know what happens though? Because the good ones leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do.
Because they see the mess that it is.
This is what someone told me. My case manager told me. He said, the only reason I'm still here is because I live down the road and near my kids with my ex-wife, and I don't want to go work somewhere else. But he could be a top case manager in the military, like people helping Marines, going through trauma, turn themselves around. Like, he's a brilliant guy. And why are you working in a prison? Because he wants to be close by. But there's a brain drain. They take all the good ones and they leave. It's the same things that happen in a lot of cities and places around the world, where it's like the young people grow up and they leave, they never want to come back. That's what happens in the prison administration, so I'm told. But we can go
we could go on that for days.
I know, right? We're living in a time where, now, tail end of this COVID thing, freedom, liberty, it's like a word that's thrown around a lot. It's being taken advantage of a lot, where sometimes it's easier to just let go and let other people make decisions for us and for our families. Remind us why that's never a good thing. Remind us why.
You will never get more by giving anything away. You will not build value in your life by giving away your ability to choose, your ability to decide for yourself. And when that's removed from you, you are not an individual. You are a number. You are just another face in the crowd. It's easy to just kind of push you to the side. Look at the small freedoms that we've had taken away through COVID, and the shakeup that it's had in our society in the United States. Imagine if some type of imagine if the UN came over here and decided that, you know what, your police departments are being defunded, and we are going to be your new police force.
Like a global police force.
Well, I mean,
a lot of people would like that.
I think a lot of people would like that. I wouldn't. The day that happens is the day I go to Mexico.
Yeah, I'm right there.
But it's so important to protect your freedoms, because once they're gone, they're gone. You will not get them back, and you have to fight tooth and nail to escape that. You can watch any one of the thousands of movies pertaining to the subject. V for Vendetta. You could read 1984. I prefer you do that.
Oh, yeah.
Or you could watch the movie. Animal Farm, both George Orwell writings. Those were two books that I read while I was incarcerated that were just, I read Animal Farm when I was in school, but it didn't hit home until I read it again in prison, because you can comprehend it better as an adult. And really see, how it plays into our government and all of that stuff. But, these small liberties and stuff that have been taken away, will be continued to be taken away if we don't maintain protections of that. We have to protect all of our rights. I recently got the right to vote back. We were gonna go vote together.
Yeah, we were gonna vote. We both got our rights to vote back
because that was when I was getting married. I was on my honeymoon when the election was. But
I want people to realize too that life is constantly going to be throwing more shit at us. You're not now living this amazing, yes, you're very happy. I'm very happy, but life is constantly throwing shit at us, and we're using the experiences that we've learned and that we've talked about today, how to deal with that. And just to use an example, and it's hard to tell your story, but I mean, because of you're still paying for your crime. You can't drive a car, and you just got hit by a freaking car on your bike the other day, and now you can't even walk.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I know a lot of people are probably curious. When I was 19 years old, I got in a really, really bad car accident that I had caused due to, just was my fault completely. Was coming home from college, was out at Siesta Key with a couple friends having a party, and had a couple drinks, was on my way home, was going through an intersection. I ran a red light, and I T-boned a young woman in her driver's side, and unfortunately she ended up bleeding to death. She died of internal bleeding. And at 19 years old, to hear from an officer when you wake up from being knocked out for a couple hours that you've been responsible for the death of another individual is the most devastating thing in the world. Is crippling.
Can't imagine anything more devastating than hearing that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the things, a lot of people talk about, your sentence is done when you leave prison. But for me, I live my sentence every day knowing that I caused the death of a completely innocent person, a young woman who had her whole life before her. She was a hairdresser at a local salon in Lakewood Ranch, and aspiring, and her light was snuffed out much too quickly. But it's in some of the, it's in this, and in what I do with my training and everything. This is where I want to give back, and I want to help people through their tough times. And
why?
Make a positive impact, because I do not want to see others go through the same shit that I have. It's nothing that I want for anybody. Being able to help just one person would make me fulfilled, and that I've made a change.
Your company is fitness integrated. Oh, you caught me.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Fit concepts.
Yeah, no.
Integrated training concepts.
I'm all over the place now. Thank you for sharing, and your company and we've talked about, but your company essentially takes people, helps people that are at whatever places in their lives, whether they're the first day getting out of prison or, a 60-year-old man or woman, you help people go from where they are and apply those same things to their lives that you had to learn and apply to yourselves. We've talked about how to eat right. We've talked about how to, eat right in a place where you can't. We talked about how to think right in a place where you can't. How do you keep yourself physically fit in a place that you can't? And why is that so important? A lot of people, myself included, believe that keeping fit requires you to go to the gym multiple days a week and keeping on top of it and being peak performance. But there must have been something that you did in that solitary confinement room that you're still doing today that allows you to maintain that peak growth. Planking, right?
Yeah, planking, that's
Yeah,
it.
it's planking.
Lots and lots of planks. Well, I mean, for everybody, core stability can benefit every single person. If you're a power lifter or if you're an 80-year-old grandmother, train your core, do planks.
I think there's a huge relationship, and I'm trying to lead you into it. There's a huge relationship between mentally fit and physically fit. It's the days that we wake up and we're not mentally there. Those are the days that we need to work out the most. And those are the days we want to get out of it. Oh, my brain, I got work. I'm thinking about it.
Right.
But there's a huge relationship. You could have cracked in solitary confinement if you didn't have the ability to plank.
Right.
Not to use that basic example.
But to have an outlet. One of my biggest outlets when I was in solitary confinement, the few times that I found myself there, was reading. Lots and lots of reading. You're only allowed to have one book at a time while you're in there, and you're not really supposed to share amongst the inmates. But for anybody listening who's been in confinement, damn well about pulling books apart and sending pages to different rooms. Just so you could read, you might have 5 pages you get to read.
Yeah, there was a book.
You read those 5 pages over again 20 times.
There was a book that I had asked Courtney to send me just because I was missing like the middle 20 pages in the book. The prison library, more often than not, had multiple sections of books missing.
Pages, yeah. But, and
you have to figure it out, make up the story.
Yeah. Yeah. You're looking for the resolve at the end of the book, but
what happened at the end of the Count of Monte Cristo? Did he get out? I don't know.
The world may never know.
That's the most read book in prison, by the way. If you Google the most read book,
really?
that's the most read book in all of prisons. Shawshank Redemption is the most watched movie, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it's so funny. Rice is the most eaten food.
Yeah. Those are funny stats. I never knew any of that.
And the prison population in America is so big that there was so there's one company that makes all of the food for all of the federal prisons. Tens of millions of people. It's called O'Keefe brand or whatever. Owned by the Bush family, by the way, if anyone wants to know, talk about corruption in the world the freaking Bush family owns.
Is that the Keefe coffee?
Yeah, the Keefe coffee.
Oh God, I hate that stuff.
Yeah,
That's
it's the
worst stuff in the world.
There was a potato chip brand called the Whole Shebang.
Yes.
Where they just took in all the flavors and whatever flavor left over they had, they put it in there. You could only buy it in prisons.
Yeah.
It became so popular that that's the only product the company sells publicly. You can go on right now, go on Google, type in the Whole Shebang. I promise it is the best potato chips you will ever buy.
I can second that. Those are, you crush some of those up on a on a ramen soup sandwich with some beans and stuff. Oh, that was a staple for me a couple times.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Aaron, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners off that you feel like we didn't get to touch upon? Because I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, there is one thing that I want to touch on, and it's pertaining to my charge. I caused the death of an innocent woman because I was negligent in drinking and driving. If you are thinking about drinking and driving, please, for those that you love, for their sake, call an Uber, call me, call Charlie. We'll figure something out. Don't get behind the car if you're drunk. There's too many ways to prevent these deaths. And put your cell phones down, guys. Cell phones cause more deaths.
Thank you.
Than drinking and driving do now, and it's absolutely terrible. But and I also want to say, if anybody is out there, just going through a tough time, my best advice to you is, just remind yourself of who you are, why you're doing it, and keep pushing. And if you're struggling with anything and you need somebody to talk, once again, I love coaching people. I love talking to people. If you're having issues, I would love to help you out. And I'm sure Charlie can include some links to my website and everything on his show if you guys are curious about that.
Do you think that putting breathalyzers in cars mandatory is the solution for drunk driving?
No, because people are going to find a way around it. Why do people run red lights? Why do people roll through stop signs? Why do people shoplift? It's our nature.
Do you think that families of those who have been hurt or killed because of drunk driving situations would want breathalyzers in cars? Do they see that as like the ultimate solution? Because here you are, like here's a big problem, and you can apply problems to everything. And I'm trying to figure out where government should be in our societal problems. That's the thread of the show. That's the thread of every show. Where should government be to have prevented what you did? Or is it government's even responsibility? Or is it the government's responsibility to be part of your rehabilitation because you can't prevent things?
It's not their responsibility to make sure that we don't go out and do that. That needs to happen at home. I don't want to say that, I did have a wonderful upbringing. But when it comes to that, it's, I feel like your morals and everything that you need to get through life to make positive, good decisions need to take place at home. I think to prevent more drinking and driving accidents specifically, I think the best thing that we could do would probably be bring driver's ed back into schools. I think education...
Wait, they're not in schools anymore?
I never had driver's education.
Oh, shit.
I went to school down here in Florida.
Oh, yeah, we didn't have it in my school either.
Familiar with driver's education at any school. I think, there's probably classes and stuff you can opt into. But
that's like the one thing schools should be teaching. It's like how to write a check and how to drive a car. What else are they teaching you?
I went to a local school. I think it was a good school, but I feel like I could have gotten a much better education there. And that's one thing that concerns me a lot in our country is our education system. I think the root of all of our problems is education and misinformation.
Inmate.com.
Mm-hmm. Inmate.com is the biggest problem.
We're living in a world, inmate.com, especially during COVID right now.
Well, the biggest thing that I took away from being incarcerated was prison is a microcosm of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can figure it out in there, if you can replicate that out here, then you have no opportunity but to be successful.
You're telling people my secret.
I know, right?
You don't tell people my secret. That's literally the secret to life.
For those of you listening, you are now responsible to not repeat that.
This stays between us. It stays between us. Aaron Gooding, my friend, thank you. Let's go train. I'm excited. Let's go work out. We're going to go do it, guys. Man. My listeners, thank you for watching and listening Untold Stories without Blockworks Group, the production company, and my sponsor, my guest, my wife, God, everyone. Without anyone who wouldn't be here today, thank you guys so much. Without you, my listeners, without Bitcoin, without Satoshi Nakamoto, without the Magic Sky people, none of this would be here today. Thank you so much. I am Charlie Shrem, and I will see you in 2 days. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.